what are access modifiers in Java? Well, have you heard about keywords like private, public, protected, etc. while creating your own variables or functions with programming languages like C++ or C? Well, those keywords are called as the access modifiers. They do exist in Java as well, and generally they are used to control the scope of classes, methods and variables. In this comprehensive tutorial, we are going to learn everything about them in details. But before we do so, ensure subscribing and enabling the bell icon for Intellipaat YouTube channel to never miss any update coming from us. Having said that, let us begin with the discussion by covering what are access modifiers.
Access modifiers are the keywords in Java which allows us to set the accessibility or scope of a variable, method, class, constructor, or any other members in our Java program. There are 4 different types of access modifiers in Java, which are public, private, protected, and default or no access modifier. Any variable, method, class, constructor, etc. marked as public can be accessed from anywhere, be it in or out of a class or inside or outside of a package. Public access modifier provides the widest range of accessibility to the members it is associated with. A public member is easily accessible through a subclass as well. It means a class inheriting another class can access the public members of the later one, that is the parent class. Those members of a Java program which are having private access are only accessible throughout the same class in which they are declared and defined. These members are not accessible to any other classes. Doesn't matter if they belong to the same package or not. Their scope or visibility will be limited only to the classes to which these members actually belongs to. While anything marked as protected can be accessed throughout the same class and also in its subclasses or child classes. These members of our program having protected access are also accessible to those classes which belong to different Java packages as well. The default access modifier is by default assigned to the members of a Java program if no other access modifier is specified to them. These members with default access are accessible within the same class and can also be accessed throughout the same package, but cannot be accessed by the classes which belongs to other packages. Here's a much simpler tabular representation of all the 4 access modifiers and how they affect the scope and accessibility of the members they are associated with. In this table, the tick marks represent the accessibility and cross marks represent the non-accessibility of the data members associated with the corresponding access modifiers. For example, the data member with public access is accessible within its own class and its own package. It is also accessible by the subclasses present in different packages as well. Not only this, it is also accessible in other scenarios like when accessed from other packages but outside of its subclass. While the private access modifier allows the data members to be accessed only within its own class and not in any other scenarios whatsoever. To get a deeper understanding of the topic, let us jump to the IDE and give this a try. So I am in my IDE, I am using Visual Studio Code. You can use whichever IDE you are comfortable with. So here I have created a folder named package1, which is inside Intellipaat folder. Here I have already created a Java project and named it as project1.java. Let's start with creating a simple class and name it as class1. Here we'll initialize 4 different string variables with different access modifiers. So let's start with public string and name it as public variable. This will hold public. Then private and name it as private variable. This will hold private. Then a protected variable. This will hold protected. And then a default variable. This will hold default. Now let's create a method which will be printing these variables. So let's name this as method1. Sysout. Let's start with public variable, then private, protected, and lastly the default one. Now let's create a main method within our project1 class. Within this, we will create an object of class1. Name it as C1. And using this object, we will call method 1. Now let's try to run this and see the output. So here we can see public, private, protected and default is printed. That means we can access the public, private, protected and default variables having the same access modifiers within the same class. Let's have a look at the table for this. Here we can see that we can access the public, protected, default and private data members when they are being called within their own class. Now let's try to make some changes within our current program and look at if we can access the same variables outside of the class but within the same package. In order to do that, let's bring these print statements out of the class 1 and put it in our main method in the project 1 class. Now we don't need this method 1 and we don't need to call that method either. Let's use this C1 object to access these members. As you can see, this private variable is already throwing an error. It says the field class1.private variable is not visible. Let's try to run it. We got a build failure. Let's continue. And it says the field private variable is not visible. Let's try to comment it out and see the results. Run again. And yes, we can access the public, protected and default variables outside of their class but within the same package. Is it same as we saw in our table? Let's have a look. So our table says that public, protected and default can be accessed within the same package but outside of its class, but not the private one. And yes, that's the exact thing we saw in our program. Now let's try to create a scenario where we are accessing the public, protected, default and private data members outside of the package but within the subclass of their own class. Let's start with creating a new Java project and name it as project 2. That would be created within the same package. Let's get the initializations of the data members from class 1 and put it in our project 2. Now let's have another project outside of our current package. Let's name it as project 3. And let's import project 2 from package 1. Package 1 dot project 2. Here let's create a class 3 which will extend project 2's properties. Here we'll try to print those variables from project 1. So we'll copy this and paste it right here. Let's also create a method and put these print statements inside of it. So we'll write method and name this as method 3. And let's put all these print statements inside of this method. Since it is extending the properties of project 2, we will not be needing any objects to access those data members. Now let's go ahead and create a main method in project 3. And let's create an object C3 of class 3. And let's use this object to access method 3. You might have already noticed that private and default are throwing errors. What do they say? Default variable is not visible and private variable is not visible. So let's try to run it and see the output. It says private and default is not visible. Let's try to comment this out and then run. As you can see, the public and protected variables are accessible. Let's have a look at our table and verify this. Here we can see that only public and protected is accessible when we are outside of the package and using the subclass of the parent class, but default and private are not accessible. Now let's try to print these data members without extending the properties of their class. For that, let's get these print statements from class 3 and paste it in our main method. We will not be needing the class 3 and the initializations. We will only be needing the object of project2 class. So let's create it. Project2, let's name the object as obj. And let's uncomment these lines and use the obj object. I'll copy this and use it with the others like this. So we can see that private, protected and default are already throwing errors. They say that the thing is not visible for all the 3 variables. Let's try to run and see the output. Private, protected and default is not visible. Let's try to comment these lines and then try to run our program. As you can see, public is clearly accessible when we are trying to access it outside of its class and outside of its package as well, without using its subclass. Let's verify this also from our table. Here we can see that only public is accessible and protected, default and private are inaccessible when we are trying to access it outside of its package and not within its subclass. That's all we have for this session. I hope now you have understood what are the access modifiers in Java, what are their types, and how it affects the accessibility or visibility of a data member in a Java program. Thank you for being a part of this session. If you have found this video informative, don't forget to give it a like and also subscribe to our YouTube channel if not done yet to come across more of such simple yet impactful videos from Intellipaat YouTube channel.
Just a quick info, guys. Intellipaat offers full stack web developer course in collaboration with E&ICT Academy, IIT Guwahati. Through this course, you can learn everything from front-end web development to back-end web development from esteemed IIT Guwahati faculties and industry experts. With this course, we have already helped thousands of professionals in successful career transition. You can check out their testimonials on our Achievers channel, whose link is given in the description below. Without a doubt, this course can set your career to new heights. So visit the course page link given below in the description and take a first step towards career growth in the field of web development.